As far as the human mind and body are concerned, paying attention to fear favors survival. That is why fear in its many forms is impossible to ignore. Why is that? Because what will your next priority be if you don't survive? That's a rhetorical question. But the truth is, that's why survival is so important. Because you matter, and you don't want to die. All right. So now we're going to talk about fear. This was on the itinerary for Force of Habit, the role of fear. That's a picture I took in my backyard. Kind of proud of that. I know it, man. I know it, man. Isn't that perfect? Yeah, that's my feeling. There's only one kind of fear, and your mind doesn't like it. Now, I learned this from reading Deepak Chopra. There's two things I learned from reading Deepak Chopra, and that's one of them. And I didn't believe it at first, but I'm an empirical scientist, same as you all are, and I look at my results, and I realize, and I can prove it to anybody, I can prove that there's only one kind of fear, that if you're scared on any level, even uncomfortable, let alone terrified or anxious, that all fires in your limbic brain. It's all absolutely connected with your flight or fight response and survival. Any level of fear. And the interesting thing about that is, one of the books that's another book that's in the bibliography of this PowerPoint presentation is a book by Rick Hansen and a neuroscientist whose name I never can think of, called Buddha's Brain. And it's not a super brilliant book, but it really, really nails the neuroscience of fear. It really, really gives you a great appreciation for what the neuroscience of fear is, and how the whole amygdala hijack thing of how your mind doesn't like fear. And his whole thesis is that the human brain he talked about created, I don't want to get in trouble with that, was evolved or created in order to be traumatized. It's an organ that was designed to be traumatized. Because what is being traumatized? Being traumatized is one trial learning. And once you've been traumatized, it's like, you've heard the expression, which I was in East Tennessee and heard it, once burnt, twice shy. Ever heard that? You don't have to have ever heard it to know what it means. Because that's what they say in East Tennessee. And you kind of get that and you say, yeah, I can relate to that. Fear is a much stronger motivator by far than pleasure is. We remember what happens to us that was threatening and painful far longer than we remember things that were pleasurable. And things that we learn through fear are far harder to extinguish than things we learn through pleasure. So the deal is that because fear is such a strong motivator, because it favors survival, it's apt to show up everywhere, and it's apt to be very hard to extinguish, and we can't really get rid of it. You can get rid of the effects of it, but you can't get rid of it. And that was the point I wanted to make, was just that when you're in the area of fear, you realize that you're dealing with the limbic brain, you're dealing with the amygdala, you're dealing with the flight or fight response, even if it's not a lot of fear. So let's talk about the role of fear in the formation of PTSD symptoms. And all fear is connected directly with fear of not surviving, with the fear of death. Mind recognizes fear even at the cellular level, which is true. All bad habits are based on fear. Subconscious mind uses memory to store fear. And the memory of fear is generalized to similar people and events, which means that the subconscious mind maintains and generates bad habits to protect you from a recurrence of the original frightening event, as if that were possible. Because the truth is, it isn't possible. Because an event occurs in time, and it can only occur one time. It can only occur once and then it's gone. You can't drink the same cup of coffee twice. You can't put your toe in the same river twice. So you obviously can't have the same encounter in life twice. But tell that to the subconscious mind, because the subconscious mind is protecting you. One of the things is that Rick Hansen points he makes in the book, he has this term called the paper tiger syndrome, or paper tiger trance. Paper tiger trance. And that is that he's saying, our forebears, the Neanderthals or whatever, were better off if they were paranoid, or maybe call it paper tiger paranoia. That's what it was. Were better off if they were paranoid there was a saber-toothed tiger behind every possible bush that he came across. They were a lot better off thinking that than not worrying about it at all and thinking there probably isn't one behind the bush. It favored survival. Their genes were going to be passed on if you had paranoia about the tiger behind the bush. But the problem is that even though that favors survival, the thing that favored survival in childhood, as we know, and protected you while your parents were getting divorced or beating each other up or being alcoholic or whatever, are really in the way now. They're no longer protecting you because you're not dependent on mom and dad anymore, you know, and those kinds of threats don't have to exist. They may exist in your mind, but they don't have to really exist in your life. I mean, you don't have to be paranoid to protect yourself from being raped most of the time. You just have to use common sense and do things, you know, and take care of yourself. But there are a lot of people who feel they have to be paranoid and overstressed in order to never get raped. And it's like, you know, convince the subconscious mind they don't need the symptoms. Even though it's impossible for you to experience the same event twice, fear convinces your mind that it is possible. People say that life is one damn thing after another, don't they? That isn't true. Because your mind thinks that you can re-experience a traumatic event, life is really one damn thing over and over.